I've been covering this space for about 10 years, and what I'm interested today about, and what I'm going to ask lots of the folks about, is how they're different than what happened 10 years ago. When we're in the entertainment space with music, video, audio, even social media, lots of the technologies that were being developed during the boom were around sharing information, sharing location, band music, MP3s, we know Napster and things like that. So I really want to know what differentiates you from what happened 10 years ago, because there was this influx of companies that did this, all these kinds of different entertainment and media. And what we saw was not all of them panned out. And so even though we're past the boom, I think that we're about to see that kind of innovation seems to be coming back around again. So I want to see how much they know about what happened before to make sure that we're not going to see a replication of, hey, let's just make a startup company because we need this widget. So that's what I'm most interested in. It's actually counterintuitive. To me, it's the thing that is the least complicated. It's the thing that is the simplest to use. When I was writing at Wired, anytime I got some new fancy technology that people would tell me this is going to change the world, I'd send it to my mom and dad. And if they said, we don't understand how this works, then I kind of knew that this probably wasn't going to gain wide adoption, at least in its early phases. So now that I'm teaching, and we teach digital storytelling, and we build applications and build stories from code level all the way up to content level, I always tell my students we go do usability tests, and we put them in front of people that are not great using computers, because if they can use it, we know we've created something. So that, to me, I mean, you look at the history of innovation, many times the best technology doesn't win, but the easiest technology does. I'm actually working on a book right now about how technology is changing how we tell stories. And I think what we're learning is that you have to be clear and concise, obviously, initially. But stories don't really ever end in the digital world, right? They're like rivers. They sort of flow where they need to flow. So as you're developing these technologies, you have to understand that, and the history of innovation, I mean, the internet became as big as it did, as quickly as it did, because of email, which wasn't initially a part of the reason that they were putting it together. There's a really great story about how the email protocols came, and it was a guy left a razor in Britain at a conference, and he had to log on and wait for somebody else to log on to say, hey, can you bring my razor back to the States? So it's the law of unintended consequences. So you have to be very clear up front. And then you have to be willing to allow that development and allow the story and allow what people do with that and how they communicate it to kind of be out of your hands. And you have to be okay with that. Otherwise, you're going to be running around herding cats all the time. And you spend your entire life cycle trying to control something instead of nurturing it and watching it grow. Well, I was having this discussion last night with a bunch of people from England, and we were all very excited about the recession, not because I'm from Appalachia, so it hits where I'm from very hard, but in terms of technology, we're in the middle of transforming from a manufacturing culture into a knowledge-based digital culture. And one of the things this recession is going to do is make that turn happen very quickly, quicker than I think most people thought, even though it's been going on for about 10, 15 years now. So I think the innovation that you're going to see is lots of big companies that are fearful that they're not going to be around. Because when you went from agrarian to manufacturing, not everybody that was around stayed around. And all these companies that you thought were never going to go away are really going to have to pour what money they have into innovating and developing. So I think I don't know if it's going to change the innovation, because all you need is a garage to really do innovation. But what it's going to do is allow it to spread quicker, because these companies are going to have to adopt this. There's no more of if you're in the tech sector, you know, there's always a fight between the old and the new, and they tell you that it's, whenever I give my talks, I put a little guy in a Scooby-Doo outfit, and I say, this is how you view your technology team. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to listen to those people now, because if you use technology right, the efficiencies that come with it, the communication that come with it, the ability to problem solve and reach out to people and have them evangelize for you, come at a much lower cost than what we traditionally think of marketing and advertising and business and selling. So I'm actually very anxious to see how quickly this begins to seep into businesses that we thought maybe it wasn't going to for quite some time. Yeah, if I knew that, I would totally not be here right now. I would be on a beach. I think one of the things that we're going to see, just because most of what I watch these days is media. I'm less involved in movies and television and audio. Is that I think that we're about to see sort of the dawn of the truly independent storytelling age, and I think that age is going to look radically different than what we're used to. It's not necessarily going to be one person who tells the beginning, middle, and end. Is that we're going to see these group collectives and swarms. And if you're familiar with alternate reality gaming, the platform that they're developing that for communication, not just for playing a game, but also for geolocating people and being able to push people into action, you begin to look at that and say, well, I can see in the next presidential election, we're using a company like Citizen Logistics where people can give their zip codes and mobile phones, and you can geolocate them on a map and then target them with specific instructions to go out and we need you to canvass here today. This we now know that this is the street that's going to determine the election. That kind of thing is a very powerful tool. And so those are the kinds of, and it allows people, again, it's a story, but not in the way that you're sitting down and watching Battlestar Galactica, which, awesome. But it's a story that changes the way our culture works and the world works, because you're suddenly mobilizing swarms of people around specific tasks in local areas. And it doesn't get much more powerful than that. So those are the entertainment stuff is a lot of fun, and it's where we spend most of our money, and it clearly is how we connect to each other, and I think that's important too. But things like this geolocating and this swarming and this platform for the ARGs, I think is really going to change fundamentally how we think about how we interact with the world.